Hi, it's Christy and welcome back to Spacious Success. Today I want to talk about something that's probably popped up in your Instagram feed. Maybe you've heard friends talking about it, maybe it's even tempted you yourself, and that is the cold plunge trend. People dunking themselves into freezing tubs of water at 5 a.m, claiming that it's the secret, it's the hack to better focus, reduce stress, metabolic magic, and unstoppable resilience. Now, don't get me wrong, I love science-backed strategies, but the truth is, cold exposure isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. And if you're a woman, especially a high-achieving one who's already juggling a mental load, a demanding mental load, perhaps a schedule that feels unrealistic, and your stress thermostat is already set to high by default, well, maybe there's some important things that you need to know before you turn yourself into an ice block. So let's dive in, and yes, that pun was fully intended. Hi, I'm Dr. Christy Goodwin, a Neuro-Performance scientist, speaker, and executive coach who learned the hard way that chasing success can come at a cost. After burnout landed me in hospital, I made it my mission to help ambitious women who are done trading their health and happiness for high performance. On Spacious Success, I share science-backed strategies and real stories to help you flourish as a female at work and beyond so you can stop paying the success tax. Several years ago, I started swimming in the ocean, and not the balmy summer kind. I like that too. I'm talking about the middle of winter in July in Sydney here. The water tends to get down to around 16 to 19 degrees Celsius, and for our US and international counterparts, that's usually about 61 to 66 degrees Fahrenheit. It's cold enough to make you gasp, and I certainly did. Now, honestly, I loved it. I didn't like it at the time, but I'd love getting out of the surf. I'd feel alive, I feel energized, ready to take on whatever the day threw at me. But then I tried ice baths. I wanted to take it up a notch, but that was a different story. You see, instead of feeling restored, I noticed that I actually felt more stressed. My body didn't recover well afterwards. It actually rebelled. And my Whoop data actually backed this up. You know, on nights after I'd had an ice bath, even in the afternoon, my deep and REM sleep plummeted. And so that was the wake-up call I needed. Ocean dips and ice baths aren't the same thing, that's true. Cold showers and going outside with one less layer on in winter are also quite different. And for women, especially, cold exposure doesn't always deliver what the biohacking bros and the people that are hackers and optimizers often promise us. And so this sent me digging into the science, and that's what I want to share with you today. So why is cold exposure so trendy? Well, research tells us that yes, cold exposure can improve our mood and focus. It can boost our stress tolerance and our resilience. It can improve our glucose control. It can it certainly activates our sympathetic nervous system, but then our parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system. It can support our sleep. It all sounds great, right? But here's the catch. Most of this research was done on men. And according to Dr. Stacey Sims, who's a world-leading expert in female physiology, women respond very differently to cold exposure. And this is why. Body composition. Women generally have something called subcutaneous fat, which changes how we retain and hold heat and how we cool down. We also know there's differences in thermoregulation. In cold environments, women's blood vessels constrict a lot more tightly, sometimes triggering what we call the shutdown response. That means that instead of getting the dopamine hit or the metabolic benefits that men often report, some women, we shut down when we get in an ice bath. There's no adaptation, there's no reset, there's just elevated stress. You see, temperature matters. Most plunge tubs sit between 0 to 4 degrees, 32 to about 39 degrees Fahrenheit. And for women, that's just too cold. Instead of restoring us, it spikes our cortisol, leaves us feeling more depleted than before. Cold exposure feels different also depending on the stage of your menstrual cycle. We know, for example, in your luteal phase, which is after ovulation, your cold body temperature will actually rise, making the cold feel actually more tolerable, but also potentially more depleting. You can see it's not really clear, and there's some nuances for females. In perimenopause, we also know that vasoconstriction can change how extreme cold feels. It actually feels more stressful. So I see this with many of the high-performing women that I coach. They're often living a life of high stress from work demands, their parenting load, so adding another stressor to their days. To be honest, it doesn't make sense, and their biometric data tells us that. So if you've ever wondered why your friend swears by her ice bath while you just feel wrecked afterwards, this might be why. I also want to point out we're all unique, so it's important to listen to what your body is telling you. Not necessarily your wearable, but your wearable can help. It can help you track your biometric data over time, and it can help you to make some data-driven decisions about whether to dunk or not to dunk in the ice bath. So, does this mean that we should skip cold exposure altogether as women? Well, not necessarily, despite what I've just said. Cold can definitely be incredibly beneficial if you do it differently and do what works for your human operating system. Dr. Stims recommends that women should aim for around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius or around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that's still chilly, but it's tolerable. This is the zone where women can access the benefits, where we get that parasympathetic, that rest and digest activation of our nervous system. This is where we can improve our glucose response without tipping into our shutdown mode. Cold exposure helps our body to release epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. And these chemicals can also improve our cognitive attention, our alertness, our energy, our mood, and this explains why our mental state, often shifts after we've got out of the cold. There's that 250 to 500% increase in the baseline of these neurochemicals after cold exposure. This means that no, you do not feel good while you are in the cold. In fact, if you are not saying bad words about me under your breath, you're doing it wrong, but you will feel that euphoric state from those catecholamines, that epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine after you get out. It literally changes your brain chemistry. Your elevated dopamine can stay with you for hours. And unlike the fast spike and then the crash you get from coffee, it will sustain you over time. And so that's why a cold dip in the ocean, a cold shower might leave you feeling clear and uplifted for the whole morning and not just for the 15 minutes after you've scoffed your coffee. Now, remember, you don't have to turn your morning into a Navy SEAL audition. You don't have to do a 3-hour morning ritual to power up your day. Research tells us you don't need marathon plunges to get results, especially as females. We know that you'll get better mood, sharper focus, improved stress resilience, that building that tolerance to stress, a healthier metabolism, even activation of your brown fat from around 11 minutes of cold exposure per week, not per day. That doesn't mean you should do one heroic 11-minute cold plunge. For my clients, what we've seen works really well is breaking it up into 2 to 4 shorter sessions of a few minutes each day. So if you're shivering through a 2-minute cold shower 3 times a week, you're probably hitting the sweet spot. Maybe it's a 30-second cold shower every day. Now, some practical options for women. Have a cold shower. Even 30 to 60 seconds at the end of your warm shower can deliver some of the benefits. Maybe not the 255% increase in those baseline chemicals, but you'll see an improvement. Cold exposure. Getting into the ocean, a lake, a river, even in winter. In Sydney, we drop to around 16 to 19 degrees, which really is near that sweet spot. Adjust seasonally. Women in perimenopause or under a high stress period of time, you might need warmer water, shorter durations, less frequency, or to not ice bath at all. And if cold water just isn't your thing, there are alternatives. Cold acclimation. That's a fancy term for saying go outside with one less jumper on. Go outside without your jacket, without your beanie, without your gloves. The goal isn't to feel the goal is to feel uncomfortably cold for a short burst of time, ideally at the beginning of the day. Now, sauna might be a better thing for you. It improves your circulation, it helps with recovery, it activates your parasympathetic nervous state, it improves your mood, your mental clarity. It has a more gentler reset for your nervous system, a great one for many high-performing women. Breath work, walking, getting out in nature, even just 30 seconds in nature will help reduce your cortisol levels. These are the things that we need to do as women when we're feeling powered down. We're feeling depleted, we're feeling stressed. And this is why I love tools like Whoop or Aura Rings for journaling how we feel. If your recovery scores, your sleep quality, your mood are worse after you get in the ice bath or the cold shower, that's your body telling you it's probably not the right fit. Listen to your body's whispers. So here's what I want you to take away from today's episode. If you're a woman navigating a demanding life, you're running a team, you're managing a business, you are raising a family, you're caring for your aging parents, you don't have to necessarily punish yourself with freezing yourself in plunges. Cold exposure can definitely be powerful, but the biohacking world was built on male bodies. We need to adjust these protocols for our physiology as females. I want you to work with, not against your biological blueprint. So next time you see someone bragging about their 3-minute 0-degree ice bath, just remember, you don't have to freeze to be effective. I'm Dr. Christy Goodwin, a neuro-performance scientist, speaker, author, and executive coach. If today's episode was helpful, I would love it. I'd really appreciate it if you could share it with another high-achieving woman in your life. A woman who's tired of chasing hacks, following bro science just to reclaim her time, her energy, and her focus. Until next time, stay powered up. Thank you for your time and attention and for tuning in today.